The person of Anga Christian. We are going to be discussing on how the press in Cameroon is treating the ongoing socio-political tensions rocking the nation, looking at the Boko Haram crisis, the political happenings, especially surrounding the presidential elections, and of course, the ongoing Anglophone crisis. DP, we are glad to have you on the point.
Thank you very much. The pleasure is mine.
I'll start by asking you to make a reading of the way the press has treated Boko Haram, presidential elections, and the ongoing Anglophone crisis. Do you have the impression that the press in Cameroon was taken by surprise? That is, they were not prepared for conflict reporting?
I think, let me begin with Boko Haram, which was the first actually conflict that we had, first experience. I would say that the press has been very, very responsible.
Okay.
Because when you go to school to train as a journalist, or when you practice, at least you have some knowledge about reporting on conflict. You know, to avoid inflammatory headlines that may, make situations worse. And so I think about Boko Haram, for the media down south, we were not very close to what was happening up there. So most of the time we could only relay what was reported by either some local media organs or foreign media that had sources on the ground, more than the local media. And so I think, Boko Haram, like I said, the press was more responsible. It's true that a few cases, had professional lapses in the way the coverage was made. But I think, on the whole, in my opinion, the press did much better in covering the Boko Haram.
But do you have the impression that the press was ready, even without the coming of conflicts to Cameroon? Was the press anticipating the eventuality of a time when Cameroon would find itself in turmoil and would be required to make reports, to give reports from the conflict sensitive perspective?
No, I will go a little bit political. That is to say that your question, finding out whether the press
was ready.
Yeah, when you look at the way our country is run, when you look at our system, I'll talk about there is no clear-cut successor to the current head of state. And so, even before Boko Haram, the Anglophone crisis, there was that fear. Remember, the peace is not the absence of war.
Yes.
So, there was the fear that nobody prays that anything should happen to the current head of state. But you can't. Nature is something that nobody questions. So, but when we look at the way the country is, or was, and it still is, imagine that a situation where there's a vacuum at the presidency, with the present setting, there was always that fear that Cameroon may not easily handle that. Well, it is said in the constitution that in the event of a vacuum, the president of the Senate will step in for 90 days, within which elections will be organized, and then he will not take part in the election. But again, you look at, do we have that kind of a discipline military that would allow the current Senate president, given his age too, given, from where he's coming,
the ethnic divide,
yes,
and other things, yeah,
to step in, and those were the fears, and they are still the fears that continue to reign. And so, journalists,
and reports by especially international crisis.
Yes, predicting that, Cameroon was in peace, but it was not enough to say that it will continue to be like that. And then again, the Anglophone crisis, I think everybody saw it, that it was going to, even if it was not going to emerge during Bia's reign, it was a time bomb.
There were indicators.
There were
strong
indicators that it was a problem. And so the media knew that at one moment or the other, we could get to a point where we had to start reporting on conflict stations in Cameroon.
Okay. Now, you started by citing the Boko Haram crisis up north. We have seen political tensions in Cameroon, especially with respect to what is happening to the CRM movement. We know that Professor Maurice Kamto is in prison because of um, his party wanting to organize manifestations challenging the last presidential elections. We equally are also not new to what is happening in the northwest and southwest region. Cameroon is in turmoil. Their rating of the press, the performance of the press in the past 3 years. Are we responsible?
The answer is no and yes. I mean, in every profession, you have people who go beyond the red line. You have people who report based on from which angle, from which direction they are reporting, from which angle they are standing. Now, let me talk about the arrest of the MRC national president and some members of his party or supporters. You know, I said it somewhere on a media platform that if the English media, print media for instance, were reporting the Anglophone crisis the way some Francophone newspapers, those with Bamileke backgrounds, I mean the honors, if we were reporting the Anglophone crisis the way they have been reporting on the Kamto arrest, this country would have been in flames. I mean, what is happening in the northwest and southwest would have been a child's play. Because, you know, I understand their frustration. Their supposed president to be, or who was supposed to be, is been put behind bars. And so, when you look at some of them, I don't want to cite names here, you know, you see a interest in their reporting. So, but again, you can understand that it is about interest. That is where I dove my heart to all the English language newspapers, because
well, that was my next question.
Yeah.
Whether there are disparities in the way these issues have been reported between French-speaking and English-speaking newspapers
on the Kamto issue.
On all of it.
Yeah, because like I said, the English newspapers, for the most part, they stay very professional.
Okay.
They state the facts, they report the facts, but not not really supportive headlines or editorial policies like we see newspapers that are from the West region, whose managers are from the West region, report the MRC case. I think it's true that we have 2 or 3 English newspapers. Some will report completely for the regime, some completely as if they talk for those who are preaching secession. But again, even then, they are still very, very professional compared to what I see the French newspapers reporting when it comes to reporting on the arrest of Maurice Kamto and his supporters.
Yeah, but let's look at the Anglophone crisis. Do you think they're treated the same? Or English papers are also treating it with a lot of passion because it has to do with their regions?
No, I think, like I said, 90% of the English media, they've stayed on the professional line. I don't see a lot
In
of...
the case of Maurice Kamto, you are talking about the case of Maurice Kamto. What about the Anglophone crisis?
I'm saying that you mean French papers?
Yeah.
I think Le Messager, let me call a name now. Le Messager is doing a great job in the manner in which they've been reporting on the crisis. For most French newspapers, you can even see, especially those who are Yaoundé based, you sometimes they even promote hate speech.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, radio, TV, and even some newspapers. I don't want to say that these are newspapers that are sponsored by some regime barons or media organs. But clearly you see them acting like Radio Me Collins in Rwanda.
Okay.
But again, I mean, on the Anglophone crisis, asking yourself why the regime is so silent, getting the kind of hate speech that you see them propagate on their pages, on their airwaves, is terrible. But again, we who publish or who manage the English media organs, even if we know that we're hurt in one way or the other by the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest, we try to stay professional.
To stay professional. How difficult, anyway, before we get to the difficulties, let's look at, you say you wonder why some newspapers propagate hate speech, they get out of the ethics of the profession, yet the government seemingly is turning a blind eye to it. Do you have the impression that the regulatory organ for the press in Cameroon is not doing its job?
No. I think it boils down to what I was just saying about the regime, the only regime being, I mean, looking away in the face of hate speech, in the face of the desecration of professional ethics by journalists, in this country, especially when it favors them. You remember a situation where the president of the council of the NCC, I mean, it was actually in relation to the Anglophone crisis. Talking on how a media organ is propagating hate speech, and the guy in question, apparently with the backing of some regime barons, took him to court. That was not enough. He was sentenced. I mean, that's a scandal. It doesn't work like that in any country, a civilized country. And that's to tell you that the NCC, I mean, in my opinion, first of all, we've seen media organs who they act in disregard of the sanctions meted on them by the NCC. They continue to publish, they continue to operate as if nothing has happened. And then a TV channel, for instance, is sanctioned by the National Communication Council for professional misconduct. The next day you have ministers going to talk on the platform of that TV station, and they are aware that that TV station is not supposed to be functioning within the period of suspension. And so you render the NCC powerless. And we have been asking whether there is even the need to continue to spend the taxpayers' money on the media regulatory organ if they don't have the administrative backing to enforce their decisions.
Okay. How difficult is it, or easy is it to report on a story that directly touches on the lives of your people and stay professional? Take the case of Anglophone journalists who are reporting on the Anglophone crisis. How easy or how difficult do you are a publisher, you are working with journalists who are directly under you. How easy or difficult is it for them to be reporting on the Anglophone crisis and staying professional?
Sometimes, let me talk about the Guardian Post.
Yes.
It may sound like I'm trying to blow our trumpet. We've had attacks from the two divides in the Anglophone crisis. At some point, government thinks that we are playing the role of the mouthpiece of the secessionists. Most often, the secessionists think that we are acting on behalf of the government. And so, it is not very easy, trying to strike a balance. You may think that you are doing your best by staying to the facts, but either way, they will think that you're playing the role for the other camp, but which is not what we do. Honestly, it is not very easy to stay, I mean, in the eyes of both camps, you do your best to stay neutral, but they keep thinking that you're acting for the enemy. And so, honestly, and then first of all, both camps, whether the government or the secessionists, they're very, very intolerant toward the press. That I can assure you. You write a good story that favors them tomorrow, the secessionists, they will hail you. The next day, when you tell the story as it is, Yaoundé will say, you have been, acting as they say in French, it's an anti apology, and you are hurted. So at the end of the day, you are really not safe reporting on the crisis, but you have to keep reporting. But when you report the truth and you stay by the facts, I think you can only pray that God should be by your side.
Okay, let's look at the possibility for the press to set agenda. We are talking about the agenda setting role of the press here. These conflicts in the Northwest and Southwest regions have been going on for so long now. And seemingly, the press has not been able to impose an agenda to orientate both parties towards dialogue. Is the press failing in that role?
No. I think the problem with the Anglophone crisis is that, the Anglophone crisis is a very, very peculiar problem. Let me start by saying this. It is not about Pobia. I bet you, if Fundi were to take over this country today, and he doesn't give in to what the separatists want, we will stay on the same spot. Unfortunately for the regime, they don't even want to listen to what the separatists are saying. And so we're dealing with a situation where both parties have extreme positions. Everybody is tying, remaining firm to their position. The regime doesn't want to hear anything about the form of state. The secessionists believe that for dialogue to take place, the form of state must be on the table, whether it's federation, 2-state, 10-state, or a separation. We had the Prime Minister a few weeks ago while he was in the Southwest and the Northwest, and it was very clear. Yaoundé is ready for dialogue, but secession will not be on the table.
And we got a letter from prison where conditions have been set also by Sisiko Ayuktabe.
Yeah.
4 conditions.
Yeah.
Which means that on both sides conditions are set.
Yeah, but like I said, those conditions make it, because you cannot be going to a dialogue table with already preconditions. That is to say, for me to come to the dialogue table, we must, sometimes you play the fool, you get to the dialogue table, and there are a number of issues that you have to trash.
But even away from the Anglophone crisis, let's look at the elections, the October the elections that took place in Cameroon. The press equally did not succeed to try to canalize energies, mobilize public opinion towards a single direction.
No, you know that the issue about the last presidential election, personally, I thought that we were going to have, for the first time in this country, a formidable coalition. Okay. That would have given the press
but the press
the upper hand.
The press worked so hard to clamor for that.
We did.
Finally.
At the Guardian Post we did, but unfortunately, we have a system that knows how champions the issue of divide and rule. I cannot understand why Kamto, Cabral Levy, Osi Joshua, and Akere,
Matumba, all of them.
All of them. But I'm talking about the key candidates who were involved in the elections. If they had formed a coalition, 2 months, not what we saw on the eve of the election between Kamto and Akere, that was to me a small screen. They didn't even produce anything because we still saw Akere's ballot papers, which helped to even create more confusion among the voters. So I bet you, some people will say that the opposition, an opposition coalition will not have defeated Biya. Judging from the result that we had, I bet you, I tell you something, many people did not vote because they got disappointed with the opposition. Because we saw greed. I tell you something, if we had a formidable coalition, for them to have campaigned as a group, as a coalition in all the 10 regions, even key members of the CBDM, knowing that Biya was not going to win in that election, would have decamped, would have joined the coalition. But everybody saw that with a divided opposition, what is the need giving my vote to somebody who will not win, and I'm stigmatized? You know how it happens in this country. When they come to the issue of budgeting, they start looking which division, which sub-division is pro-government, which is pro-opposition. And so with that fear in mind, since everybody knew that, well, if I don't vote for Biya, we will be stigmatized, first of all, he will still win because of the divided opposition. And so everybody had to vote, even those who did not like Biya to stay there. So I think it was not rather the press that did not give the orientation, but that the opposition, through their greed, only help to worsen matters.
You have the feeling, like some people, that the press is losing credibility because what the press today reports mostly is dictated to it by either the society or politicians.
I think I've been to most Western countries. I'm talking about the U.S.
And that's what happens?
No, let me come.
Okay.
When you look at the CNN, you know where they stand. When you look at the Washington Post, you know where they stand. It is not a common, it is not something that is new. But I think our situation in Cameroon is made worse because of our precarious economic condition. It is very easy to manipulate a press, a media organ that is financially weak. And you know, government takes delight in making it difficult for the media to be really strong so that they can manipulate. It's a fact. You know, you take advantage of the fact that you are financially weak, you can throw a few hundreds of thousands around and you get people to do things the way you want. I mean, that is basically a crime that the press in Cameroon especially is guilty of. Because when you have a publisher who doesn't have an office, he cannot even feed twice a day, he doesn't have a car, you know, and then you just banish a few hundreds of thousands. Be sure that everything you want him published or aired will be aired or published.
Now, DP, let's look at the challenge posed by the social media today. Do you see it as a major challenge to your work, that is the job of journalist? And how is the Guardian Post using this new twist in reporting to better its output?
I think the social media, in my opinion, you know, you cannot undermine the effect that with the coming of the social media has had on especially the newspapers in this country. The newspaper industry in this country has suffered a lot because of the coming of the social media. I'll tell you something. During the period that internet was shut down in the two Anglophone regions, yeah. I mean, the sales of newspapers
skyrocketed.
Yes. The sales actually went up. Because sometimes the reader doesn't decipher between what is published on the social media. It is not professional because everybody can throw on the social media whatever, your camera, your phone.
They call it citizen journalism.
Yeah, exactly. And so people who are hungry for news, you know, the social media is within 1 second is everywhere. But you know, you have to get to Bamenda, you print, you have to write, go to printing press, and before you get to Bamenda, the man on the street already has the information. But what do you do to be able to outsmart the social media influence on readers? What you do is more of analytical in reporting, so that because on the social media it is just something that is given raw. There is no balance, there is no professionalism. So what you do, you have to stay very professional. Even if the story has been broken on the social media, you can still give it a different twist that will attract a reader. I mean, that is what we do basically at the Guardian Post. But you know, we at the Guardian Post, we pride ourselves with the fact that we realized that the social media was getting, you know, growing faster and having a toll on the sales of the newspapers in Cameroon. So we have our social media presence too is very strong. We have our electronic version, which we sell to more than, I mean, we count more than 2,700 electronic subscribers of the Guardian Post worldwide. I mean, I'll tell you, people who in the US, in Europe, in Asia, they read the Guardian Post even before those who are in Yaoundé, where we are headquartered. Because by the time we publish, by 9 p.m. in Yaoundé, we are still like 5 p.m. in Washington, for instance. The electronic subscriber already has his paper. Whereas the person who is in Cambe, in Manfe, is waiting for the paper, you know, only the next day to read if you are not a subscriber. And so we've been trying, that is how, at the Guardian Post, for instance, we try to caution the effect of the social media presence, you know, and the way it has affected our sales. So in terms of sales, we are not doing very badly, like I said, because we now attach more importance to the electronic version and the increasing number of subscribers we have worldwide.
Okay, you are a daily. You report on the crisis on a daily basis. That is, you are giving information as they happen. How do you succeed to get information from, say, Boyo, Ngokutunja, Menchum, with the prevailing situation?
There again, I will want to talk about the social media.
Okay.
As I said, they are not completely bad because sometimes they give us a hint. And when we have the hints, we start calling to verify because they will normally just put, sometimes you verify and realize that the story is not true or it's exaggerated on the social media as usual. So with the help of the social media, we are able, because if you ask my opinion, whether social media should go or it should stay, I would say it should stay. Because they act as a lead. They give us hints, which we do, they follow up.
At least you have guys on ground.
No, I'm coming.
Okay.
The guys may not be everywhere. Even here in Yaoundé, where we are headquartered, we don't have access to every office. We don't have access to every corner that an incident is, there's an incident. And so you rely on the citizen journalists on the spot, but you don't just take it and put as they publish. When you get it, you start making calls to your reporters in those localities, or even if you don't have reporters there, at least you have one or two sources who you can contact, to confirm or to give additional information to what is published on the social media. And so basically, that is how we're able to cover everything that you have on the Anglophone crisis in all the divisions of the two regions, or even subdivisions.
Yeah, you have, certainly you have guys in Kumba, maybe in Libya Lem, and
in Kambe, in Kumbu.
In Bange and in Manfi. Are there some extra security dispositions taken to ensure their safety? Or you are just giving them guidelines on how to stay safe while they do their job?
What we do, basically, you know that the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest is a very, very sensitive crisis. In fact, it's even a conflict now. We're talking about armed conflict now. No longer, we've gone beyond talking about crisis. So what we do, sometimes when a story is coming from a reporter from those hot spots, that is very sensitive, we would rather prefer to use the name of a reporter who is based in Yaoundé. Because you put his name, you put his life in danger if you report such a sensitive story, whether it favors the government or the separatists, and you put his byline there. No. So that is the only thing we do. And then sometimes, we've always said it, we tell our reporters every day, no article is worth dying for. If you cannot get to the spot, stay behind and get to your sources on the ground. But avoid going to the center of conflict, a center where you have exchanges just because you want to get a story to be published. And so what we tell them, avoid areas that are, confrontational, so that you don't get caught in a crossfire. I mean, basically that's all we can do, because we will not tell the military to give us, provide us security. Because that one, again, you are exposing yourself to the other party who thinks that, why is this man protected if he's not a spy? And you know what that means.
Okay, we are going to take a short break. We are coming right back to continue our discussions with the publisher of the Guardian Post newspaper out here in Yaoundé. Welcome back. You're watching The Point on My Media Prime, and our guest, as earlier announced, is the publisher of the Guardian Post, and his name is Nga Christian. We are discussing on how the press has been covering the conflicts that are actually rocking this nation, Cameroon, from the Boko Haram crisis to the political tensions and the ongoing Anglophone crisis rocking the Northwest and Southwest region. He is giving his expert idea on how the press should cover crisis and what they are doing at the level of the Guardian Post Post to ensure that their reporting stays professional and very, very responsible, considering the security situation of those working within this media outfit. We continue our discussion with you, Mr. Christian. You say security measures are taken at your level because you cannot call the military to provide escorts to some of these spots. Have you seen, I don't know, when you look at the synergy, the collaboration amongst the press, do you think that your peers, other publishers, other journalists are helping each other to get this profession grow in Cameroon?
You know, in every profession, you have people who have the tendency to look low on others, to backstab others, to outsmart others. It is not very different in the journalism profession in this country. Okay. But at the level of the English media, we created, just of recent, because we realized that there was a lot of animosity, a lot of backstabbing, you know, among the publishers of English newspapers in this country. And so a few months ago, like a month ago, we came together in a general assembly in Yaoundé and created the Cameroon English Language Newspaper Publishers Association, CENPA. Okay. And one of the objectives is to promote the camaraderie that normally should exist, you know, not only within the press corps in Cameroon, but especially within the publishers of English newspapers, and then right down to our staff. And you know, I was going to talk about CENPA because we also have the role to promote responsible journalism, especially with regard to the crisis in the two Anglophone regions. And so we are taking note of that. Even with the creation of CENPA, we still have people who think that they can run down their colleagues or their peers, I mean publishers, take them to court, which is not something that we want, you know, blackmail them, you know, backstab, give them names that they don't even merit. And this is something that I can bet you, CENPA, I'm the president, I was an elected president of CENPA. That is something that we are going to work, we're going to launch a serious fight against publishers who backstab others, publishers who denigrate others in front of politicians, publishers who go around giving their peers names that they don't deserve. This is something that CENPA is not going to allow to happen again.
Now, DP, you enjoy the status of the lone English
daily
in Cameroon, and looking at what the Guardian Post does every day appears so easy. How easy and difficult is it for you to actually be able to do what you are doing?
I think it would be a wrong impression to think that publishing a daily newspaper is an easy job. It is a very, very difficult task. I mean, for those who have published newspapers before, or those who are in the profession, it is not even easy, given the context, the Cameroonian context. It is not easy to publish a weekly newspaper in this country. And so, at the Guardian Post, every day is a challenge. It may look very easy for somebody who is just getting the paper on social media and insulting, oh, you've been bought over, you don't investigate. But sometimes people need to visit us to see what we go through. I mean, our editorial meetings, first of all, in the morning and after 5 p.m. Sometimes you may think that you have to rush into our newsroom to separate the fight. It is never easy, even just to agree on the headlines, to agree on the stories that should go on the pages of the Guardian Post every day. I mean, even among us, sometimes we quarreled. I mean, at our editorial meetings to agree on a headline or a particular story where they should fit into the newspaper. That tells you that it is, you know, not an easy task. But the luck we have at the Guardian Post is that we have, permit me to say it, but it's a fact anyway, the best cream of journalists in this country at the Guardian Post. You know, people who are level-headed, the well-trained, experienced, and that is what makes it easy for us to publish every day. And thank God, we in 2016, as you may be aware, you know, the backbone of a newspaper is a printing house. When you have a printing press, you can be able to say the rest will follow. And so we have a printing press which we acquired since 2016.
Yeah, we are going to discuss, I'm sure we are going to discuss about that. But very briefly, I just want to ask specific questions. I went through I've gone through publications, and it appears the Guardian Post has something against the SDF. Is it true? The articles are always not too good.
Well, you know, I think I don't understand. That is the mentality the SDF gives. And I tell you what, my collaborators can attest to this. We've had several. You know, one thing I was going to tell you about the survival of the Guardian Post is that every office in this country, whether it's diplomatic, whether it's the parastatal, private or public, I mean, whether it's the presidency, the Senate, the National Assembly, subscribe. They are readers, subscribers of the Guardian Post. And I was going to tell you this. We've had Anglophone ministers who run, juicy ministries who have refused to subscribe to the Guardian Post because they believe that we are an SDF newspaper. I don't want to cite names.
Contradiction there. Okay. Very, very particular on issues of Anglophone. I'm talking about the Guardian Post. You run, for example, recently there was an article actually regretting why an Anglophone was not at the head of Cameroon, and when the new PM was appointed, there was an article. There was in that edition you were even asking what important role the PM plays in Cameroon's overall structure. From every indication, you are so particular about the situation. I'm talking about the marginalization of Anglophones in Cameroon.
Yeah, you know, when you look at the background, the Guardian Post is an English newspaper. We may not be playing the role of the mouthpiece and the voice of Anglophones, but we have no choice. I was telling you about how French newspapers with Bamileke backgrounds report on the Camto issue. We do the same at the Guardian Post, but the good thing is that we do it in a subtle and professional manner. I will tell you something. You know, there is no newspaper, no English newspaper, I'm not trying to blow our trumpet, that started pointing out the issue of marginalization, the marginalization of Anglophones in this country, like the Guardian Post did. Even before the crisis started, we wrote an open letter to the head of state, you know, bringing out everything that they are complaining about today. And unfortunately, a dead ear was given to our editorials, our write-offs on the dangers that await this country in the face of looking away. You know, why Anglophones continue to feel marginalized in a country they call theirs. And so, when you look at the post of Prime Minister, for instance, it looks too big to a man on the street. But when you go closer to the Star Building, that is when you realize that it's an empty shell. Because the Prime Minister in this country, sometimes we've had decisions where an Anglophone Director General of Treasury, the Minister of Finance at the time, proposed somebody who is supposed to be vetoed by the PM. The PM says, no, this guy is competent, he's supposed to work in this position. And the PM travels out of the country with the State Director General of Treasury, and the Minister of Finance at the time sends the thing to the presidency to somebody who is lower in rank, and the Prime Minister signs that decision replacing him. It tells you that the Prime Minister position is just something that, you know, is just there to give the Anglophones They believe that they are in a power-making position.
Now, do politicians actually run after you, patronizing you for spotlighting on the Guardian Post, because it is one of the most read newspapers in Cameroon? Do they come around, maybe wanting to be seen by the public of doing so much for them, and also wanting to be seen by hierarchy, maybe the President of the Republic, for possible promotion?
I think I'll be telling a fan live. I say they don't come.
So they are your friends, most of these big.
No. This is what I'm saying. They come, but it's not every. I mean, we don't run PR in the Guardian Post. If you come to say, because politicians like to talk about their activities. If, for instance, tomorrow you become an MP for Menchum, and you want us to write about your political activities, sometimes we can take it either from the news angle, or we put it as a spotlight, because we have to be very clear. This is a paid, it's an advertorial. We are in business. When you look at the precarious situation of our economy and the press to survive, you need some of those things. But sometimes what we don't accept is a politician coming to us to run down a fellow politician. We don't do that. But if you come with your right up, you want to pay for, we give you price for the space. It is authorized even in the Western media, where you can take space even on TV.
They indicate that this is.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a paid for job.
Okay. How better is the press today under the crisis? Because what actually is required to be reported as news is also crisis. Because it is said that the press price better. They got much raw material, which is news, during times of crisis. Like every day, there are killings in the northwest, there are burnings in the southwest, there are issues up north. How better is the press under the present circumstances?
No, I want to talk about the Guardian Post.
Okay.
That is to say, I realize how much importance the diplomatic community and francophones attach to the crisis in the Northwest, because of the sales that we have in the French, in Littoral, in the center, Yaoundé. I will tell you that before the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest, I can say maybe our sales in Francophone regions was like at 40%. But as we speak, it has gone up to about 70%. Because everybody wants to know what is happening in the Northwest and the Southwest region, because they have their relations there, they have people who work there, and they want to be sure about what is happening. And so, Francophones have confessed to us that they read more of English newspapers these days, especially when it comes to reporting on the Anglophone crisis, than the French newspapers. They tend to believe in us because we are writing from the position of having people on the ground. So it is true that most people have left the Northwest and Southwest. Either they're in the bushes, but we know that they're majority in Yaoundé and Douala and other Bafoussam. And so that perhaps also accounts for the fact that sales have actually gone up in the Francophone regions. Yeah.
Now, Christian is a publisher of the Guardian Post, the lone daily, English daily in Cameroon, owner of a printing press, and is waxing very strong in the media landscape of Cameroon. Many people are surprised. Where is Christian coming from? Where is this strength coming from?
I think to say that we're waxing very strong is an exaggeration.
No, you're waxing strong.
No, let me.
Comparatively, Mr. Christian.
It's relative, right?
Okay, yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me start with the salary situation at the Guardian Post. I think that given, you already said it, in the course of this interview, that, you are congratulating us for what we're doing. And I have the feeling that the boys and girls who work for the Guardian Post, they deserve more. Normally, it's true that we don't have salary arrears at the Guardian Post. We pay every 25th of the month. But when we are paying, when we want to make the announcement that call it salaries in some institutions, at the Guardian Post, it is called stipends. That's how we call it. Your stipends are ready. That's how we announce. We don't call it salaries because We don't believe that those who work for this daily newspaper earn what they're supposed to earn. And so that is where I'm coming from to say that we are not really waxing strong. But, you know, within the context of Cameroon, you can be tempted to say we are waxing strong. But again, we have God on our side.
Okay.
That is a fact. I told you about our electronic version. Yeah. We have 2,700 or more electronic version subscribers of the Guardian Post all over the world. Each subscriber pays 66,500.
Let me ask this question differently. 15 years ago, you were not who you are today. How did you climb this ladder?
I think it may interest you to know that we started the Guardian Post in 2001.
Okay.
With a capital of 150,000 francs. I mean, it's not an exaggeration. It's a fact. Because that was the only money I had in my account. But by the grace of God, we're running a printing press which is worth more than 50 million. And we're running a daily newspaper. We don't owe salaries or stipends, as we call it at the Guardian Post, because, like I told you already, we're still working to get to a level where we can say, every 20 feet, come and go for your salaries, instead of saying go for stipends. So, but obviously, within the Cameroon context, we are doing better than others, but it doesn't mean that we don't have hurdles. We strive to do better, and I think credibility is what is giving us the strength that we have. And remember, sometimes when you are doing responsible journalism, it is not only for yourself, but the public sees. And so, the little advertisers who come to you, they want to identify with that media organ that is responsible. It's, I mean, promoting professionalism. And that is what, you know, is helping us to be able to, you know, to live, to do what we are doing.
Okay. How big is the vision? Because you started with a newspaper, today you have a printing press. Are you envisaging moving on to other things?
No, for now, we just want the Guardian Post to stay stronger. You know, we have other projects in mind which will allow the public
to discover.
How
about a French version of the Guardian Post?
No, we want to allow Francophones to manage. I think the only other thing we want to do at the Guardian Post is to have, we are hoping, it's not a promise yet, that maybe within the course of the year or early next year, we would, you know, Cameroon, we talk about daily newspapers in this country. In actual sense, there is no daily newspaper in Cameroon, because daily is just about our own conception in Cameroon that we publish 5 times a week. I know the UNESCO will say 3 times a week is daily, but in the real sense of it, we don't have a daily newspaper like we find in Nigeria, in Kenya. I mean, just to name a few African countries that the media is doing well, private media. So I think we are looking at the possibilities to have a daily Guardian Post, to have a Saturday edition and a Sunday Guardian Post. Okay. We'll make it truly daily, as the name goes.
Okay, Mr. Christian, we are almost at the end of this interview. A family man, married with children?
Yeah, of course, I'm happily married. I'm a father of 3 boys, and God willing, in a few months we should have our 4th child. And my first son, who is just turned 19, is a 3rd-year student in ASMAC. He's doing journalism, and he's doing well.
Following his footsteps.
Exactly, and the idea may not just be for him to work at the Guardian Post, but I think I love the profession. And I mean, for those who knew me from primary school, class 4,
okay,
they are not surprised that I'm a journalist today. You know, I met my teacher of primary 5 in Bamenda. She's now a medical doctor in Bali. And she met me at the commercial venue. They came for their salaries. And instead of me giving them drinks, because I'm not a big man, I mean, I was a people, she called her friends from who were not even around, and said, this is that guy I told you about. You know him? Said, this guy, I knew that he was going to be a journalist. I'm in class 5 in primary school. So in my community, knew where I come from. It is something that used to be in my blood. I used to listen to the news on radio and write them in my own way and paste them on the notice board for people to read. I used to run football commentaries when I was in secondary, high school. And so it is something that is in the blood. And I love the profession. And I think that is what is giving us the edge over the other newspapers. Because I didn't get into the profession for money. The monetary aspect is only coming later on. I did some volunteer services with CRTV Bamenda. And then I went to the Herald. That was in 1995, 96. I mean, joined the Herald in 1996. I worked for 2 years at the Herald, and my first salary was 10,000 francs. But I didn't stop. Mm-hmm. I mean, the challenges have always been there. Like I told you,
they believe
beginning a newspaper with 150,000, and we are where we are today. Like I said, it's God's grace. But again, you need to have a passion for the profession. I know of publishers and newspapers that had began with a capital of 50 million, but within 6 months, they were off the kiosk. And so, it is also about loving what you do. I mean, if you're a street sweeper, you can sweep the street in a way that will attract people who work in offices to come down and say, I want to be a street sweeper. And that's exactly what we're doing at the Guardian Post. Money is not, everything, but do the job well, and then the money will come later on.
It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure mine.
Très bientôt sur votre télévision, My Media Prime, votre série télévisée, Le Prix du Péché. Une satire sociale pour être le miroir qui nous confond, nous interroge et nous interpelle. Le Prix du Péché, c'est l'histoire de la famille d'un milliardaire, celui d'un officier, un chef d'entreprise, un homme d'affaires et tout leur entourage qui se retrouvent entremêlés. Le Prix du Péché, pour que nous soyons conscients et responsables de nos actes.
Vient de virer l'homme qu'elle aime.
Et alors? Elle n'a aucune raison d'aimer ce vaurien.
Le Prix du Péché, très bientôt sur votre télévision, My Media Prime.
Le maître, Madame Fotso, et la fille adoptive Fotso soit mis aux arrêts pour enquête.
Le Prix du Péché.
Talk like a man, a real man. Or are you afraid of Prophet Johnson?
The Holy Spirit will use this as a point of contact to clean your ears so that you can hear God in Jesus' mighty name.
I cannot believe that you elders are in the church and that small boy is turning the church upside down, inside out, anyhow he likes.
We have been waiting for you for too long.
sure you have seen what we have put in this ministry.
I know I need a man, yes. But this is not the way to go about it.
I like the prophet for you, my daughter. Use your wisdom and grow up.
Are we sure he is going to be able to run the affairs of the church? Are we sure he's going to be able to lead us?
Please, people should stop talking like unbelievers. Thank God too for our daddy for remembering to send us a pastor after 9 months without a pastor. Some of us were even afraid, thinking that they were going to close down this our local assembly. And that is because you men of God of nowadays, you focus your attention mostly on churches in the cities where there are fat tithes and offerings.
Oh, mama. Amen, somebody.
I heard you people have a new man of God in your church. They say he's anointed, and he gave people anointed ear cleaner today in church.
Bam, bam, bam.
Not the other way around. If the prophet wants me, let him approach me. And since the mountain could not come to him, he went up the mountain.
How do I start telling my daughter?
There are times it takes some wrongs for prophecy to come true.
The church is looking up to you, and even God is looking up to you. Don't fail us.
On manque Haïti de se présenter ou à ce j'ai pas. À Satan des chemins même à clé ici.
For a village na snake na domestic animal.
Hey, begin at your money. Na yambanya just leave.
If you don't leave my farm, I will use my fork on you. C'est le francophone qui dit que ah donc tu vas faire ma femme. No, I'm not be pharmacien. I'm a drug seller. I sell drugs. Je vends les médicaments.
A blood.
Yeah, blue.
Hey, Baba, you don't blow like Bob.
Okay, so I will need the camera to take a complete, outfit because it looks amazing tonight already. I'm always very excited when I have MC Mulanga on the red carpet. I don't know why. Maybe God is saying something. MC Mulanga, good evening and welcome.
Wow, thank you so much, Charisma. It's so beautiful to be here. I'm happy to have you.
It's good to have you. You know, every time when you come around, it looks like Mamura has been posted and I'm just going to blow up. So tell me, what did you do in the course of the day, preparation for tonight's event?
Yes, I was writing my jokes and I have a couple of jokes I've written for the day. Well, as time will permit, I'm sure I'll be able to dish out my punchline for the night. It's a boy comedy show season 2. We're in Yaoundé and today we are at the seaside city of Limbe, and so we hope to give the best.
Of course, you always deliver. It's no down, it's no down. So I want you to say this in English before you leave the red carpet. Since when my mommy born me, I never ever caught your class.
Hey! Since my mom gave birth to me, I've never held grudge.
I'm not going to say that he had it right, but I knew somehow he was going to be very close to it because this man is a grammarian.
Wow, this I was just cornered the truth.
Yeah, you were cornered the truth, almost landed.
Well done.
But you are still hanging somewhere at the airport. And it's good to have you here. We are expecting a lot from you tonight. We know that you deliver, obviously, but we are still anticipating. So do have a beautiful night.
Thank you so much. BT Media in the house. Keep watching, you know.
Okay, so this is one of those guys that when you have on your red carpet, you have to be scared. His name is Kumba Boy, and he happens to be one of the comedians for tonight. How are you doing, Kumba Boy?
I did fine.
Are you excited?
No.
Why? Okay, what did you do to get ready for tonight's show? What did you do? Within the course of the day, what did you do?
I travel. I buy nyama. I buy water.
You travel in Banyam. Are you sure you're not too full? Will you be able to perform?
I'm a flop man. I'm up this.
Okay, we are expecting to get a lot from you tonight, and we are sure you're going to fill up.
I know kind of catch you. I kind of can make a laugh.
The man, the way he talk pidgin, if he said go you come Kumba, and I say no, as you see me so no, I'll be boss for pidgin. Anyhow, we enjoy your night.
Thank you. Yeah. So I want you to talk say any married dinner they expect say this show no go work out. May the thunder will go strike the man. He then South Korea they learn kung fu. Okay. You understand? So many people just prepare the thunder because tonight people will laugh.
They will laugh obviously.
Keke, Rokoko, Rakaka, Rebobo, Rikaramazuke. Hallelujah. God bless you. I see the glory of God shining upon your faces. I am an American pastor all the way from United States of Bakoko. Not from United States of America, but the day I will visit the airport, I'm going to United States straight away. Hallelujah. Now so, I go run more with Rhapsody. Oh, Papa God. Rap fine, but not fine. Rap fine, but not fine. Amen? I run more with Rhapsody. I met a very pretty girl in Boya. I said, hello, beautiful. How are you? I said, I'm okay, babe. I'm okay. Yeah, I said, wow, I'm called American Pastor. I said, wow, beautiful name. Okay. You know, I invited this girl to Limbe. This girl came to my place. Amen? I invited this girl. This girl asked me, baby, please, I want to eat chicken. I said, oh my God, we have a very favorite chicken place here. We call it Mbamoise. I said, I'm going to invite you there, offer you a plate of chicken, okay? Oh my God. Some girls are very wicked. If you don't love a guy, don't punish him. Tell the guy, I don't love you. Amen? I invite this girl to the chicken place. We ordered 2 chicken in one plate like lovers. As one start chop, this girl held my hand. What a romantic English, Oxvalin. I said, come on, babe. Why do you want to stay in your hand while I'm here? Come on, I'm going to feed you, okay? My brother, can you imagine? This girl was only feeding me with plantain and pepper. They chop all chicken you want. And so, pepper, they want to keep my lips, so I said, well, babe, why are you only feeding me with plantain and pepper? I said, touching my place, I say, babe, come on, I'm going to give you chicken, okay? Hallelujah! Some girls are wicked. And when I left that place, I was so paranoid. I met another pretty lady. Please, I took this girl. I invited this girl now to Botanic Garden. Oh my God, I preach all kinds of love to this girl. I said, I even need her. I said, my honorable chair lady, the sweetest of my heart, the mother of my unborn children, mon pont de France, mon chouchou de Anana. Oh my queen, please, would you marry me? This girl said, no, please don't kneel down. Come on. I'm going to marry, but if you can only do one thing for me. I said, what is it? But I know your father is a military man, but I'm a man of God with a difference. Tell me, I'm going to do it. Baby say, please, I hope you'll not be afraid. Yeah.